Well, hi there, and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Code, where we focus on bringing you no fluff, actionable value creation insights from real technology operators in the field. Now, AI is going through its natural inflection points, and as with any technology wave, value is being questioned. Are projects truly moving past proof of concept into production phase, and are we really getting a clear ROI with AI? However, one area where there's been unequivocally a lot of value being created is AI in coding and in software development. Engineers, PMs, designers who are using these tools the right way are all being supercharged. Products are being shipped at very rapid rates, and vibe coding is being spoken about on almost every tech and non-tech podcast. But what does AI in the SDLC or the software development lifecycle process look like with developers creating real enterprise-grade secure applications? Where are the real gains in productivity without any of the fluff? That is our topic of discussion today on Beyond the Code. We have a very special guest today who's been deeply experienced in this space for a number of years. Greg Lamb joins us. He's the CTO at Civitas Learning, a Francisco Partners-backed portfolio company. Now, Greg has been a builder for many, many years. He's been at the front line of machine learning and product innovation for over a decade. He started with Yhat, one of the first companies to make deploying predictive models easy for businesses. After that, he raised funding, going through YC, and even exited to Alteryx, where he ran new product development. Greg then launched Waldo, a startup tackling e-commerce pricing, and he's now at Civitas Learning, a Francisco Partners-backed platform, leading the technology team there as the CTO, and he focuses on building technology that supports universities and students that these universities serve. So very, very exciting vertical software space. Welcome, Greg.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's nice to be joining, yeah.
Very, very cool background. Where do we find you today? What part of the world are you in? Is this the home office?
This is the home office, yeah. So Civitas Learning, we went fully remote during the pandemic. We actually did a survey with our team. We had about 150 people, and 2 people wanted to go back to the office. So we no longer have offices. So I am at working from home from Boulder, Colorado.
Nice. And assume what I see behind you is a passion of yours, is kind of a non-coding hobby of Greg's?
It was my non-coding hobby, yes. I like fly fishing. I tie my own flies. We've got a raft now. It's a hobby that just sort of continues to grow. But yeah,
awesome.
Really enjoy it.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, as I was telling you, I'm trying to get into the sport, so we'll probably pick your brains after this podcast.
Yeah, of course.
Some tips there. Awesome. So I guess before we dive into the topic of AI in the SDLC process and get really into the weeds of it, would love to learn a bit more about your journey in technology and how you came to your current role at Civitas. You've obviously been very early stage, being part of an enterprise after an acquisition, now operating as a CTO in kind of a PE-backed environment. Love to learn a little bit more about your journey.
Yeah, well, most of my experience prior to Civitas had been on the early stage side. So I had started Yhat, that was probably, 2013. And at the time I was working for a fintech company doing a lot of predictive modeling. And what we found was that actually taking the models that our data science teams were building and productizing them, getting them into our own applications was really challenging. And so that was the key insight that spawned what would become Yhat, and then eventually that turned into its own category. Now it's called ML Ops. Unfortunately, I was like 5 years too early for that. But in any event, I was at Yhat. We were there did that for 5 years, exited to Alteryx, and then eventually ended up with my current boss, CEO at Civitas Learning, was an investor in Yhat, angel investor. And he's like, hey, I need some help. We're trying to turn it around. Just got some investment from Francisco Partners. Would you want to come help me out? And I was kind of interested in the PE side just to learn a lot more about not just like how to start something, but how to grow it responsibly, how to make like a quote real business with, profit and all those types of things. And so that was one of the reasons I was really excited to join Will's the CEO at Civitas Learning. And it's been, honestly, it's been a lot of fun. And it's been a change for me. It's been nice.
I think picking on that thread, obviously, operating as a CTO in a PE-backed environment is very, very different. I guess the pace is a lot faster, a lot more rigor on the analytics. Could you unpack that a little bit more about your current experience? It's obviously a top-tier fund that invests in software. Things that you've learned, things that have been different, any of the nuances there?
Yes. So I can speak to my experience with Francisco Partners. So I don't know how much this is going to apply, across the board. Private equity is also just like such a big concept that I don't think you can necessarily like say that everyone's going to have a similar experience. The biggest difference that I've found is that you can't like pitch the dream like you can with startups. Like startups, it's all about like what could be, and private equity land is much more like, well, what is it now? What does the data show? And then like give me the quantitative path to how you're going to grow, or how you're going to reduce costs, whatever it is. We found that working with Francisco Partners has been great. They're actually very hands-off. They're kind of there when you need them, and they're obviously going to let you know if there's something that they don't like or whatever the case. But we found them to really let the operating team execute, which is quite nice, and it's been very good.
Amazing. And I assume there's also a good community of peers of other CTOs from portco companies that you can interact with.
Yes, that's been really great. We do events throughout the year with all of the technology functions within different companies. Francisco has 3 or 4 investment areas, higher ed being one of them. So I can't remember the exact number, but there's around 15 other higher ed companies and peers that we can talk with. And I'm actually meeting with one right after we talk
Nice.
right now. So we do meet and share ideas, and I think it also helps just because we do have the, whatever you want to call it, the community or that network. It also gives us the chance to engage with other vendors or other firms that could help. And then you can't do everything yourself. You're gonna buy stuff at some point to help you along the way. And so being able to talk with those other CTOs, say, hey, we're using XYZ, or we're thinking about using XYZ. How's it working for y'all? And you have a peer in a similar industry with a very similar financial standing and investors that can give you firsthand advice, which is really, really useful and helpful. Civitas Learning has been around for in all about 12 years, and it's a analytics and predictive company for student success. So what does that mean? Well, we ingest all the data from these institutions. We've got our own quantitative modeling and data processing engine that we run, and we produce a lot of insights. So things like, what's the likelihood that a student is going to come back next term? Or what's the likelihood they're going to graduate on time or get the job that they want to get when they graduate? All these different types of outcomes we can make predictions on. We can quantify it down to the individual student level. And so we produce all that data, and then we have a suite of applications that that are powered by that data that we use to service different functions within the institution. So that could be the academic advising team, that could be the career center, that could be the administration or the institutional research function. And so that's how we help schools. And then from a product standpoint and a technology standpoint, we've got a fairly broad portfolio of products. We've done some acquisition over the years, and so between that and just, we've got, I joke with our team that we've done some acquisitions. We're 12 or 15 years old at this point. So it's like we've got 3 or 4 12-year-old companies that we've stitched together. So we've got 40 or 50 years worth of software that we're maintaining.
Wow.
And it's a fairly small team. We don't have, not like we have 200 software engineers and a massive R&D budget. So that's a big challenge, and that's actually one of the reasons why the whole AI coding just phenomena is really attractive to us. Just from a maintainability standpoint, it makes things quite a bit easier for us.
So then diving into the AI and the SDLC process, first at a meta level, you've been thinking about this, you've been implementing this now for a few months pretty deeply. Where do you see the biggest opportunities for efficiencies, and talking about even the peer network of portcos that you have? Do you think you're earlier in the adoption cycle? Are folks somewhere where you are, or are you later in the adoption cycle? How are you thinking about it at a meta level?
I think everyone is early in the adoption cycle, just from the fact that in my opinion, I think the AI tooling really came into its own around December of last year. So there's just not that much time. That's one of the things that makes it really challenging, is that there is no playbook to run. Everyone is coming up with their own playbook, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work, and adjusting. From talking with other portcos, from talking to peers and friends, it's I believe we're in the at the forefront, or very advanced. I was talking with our Anthropic rep the other day, and she's like, "What are y'all doing? Because you're in the top 1% of my customers in terms of usage, at least on per capita basis." And I was like, "Oh wow, okay, I didn't know that." Wow. And then we were, there's another one that, I'm just talking with some of the FP portcos, and I was like, "Oh wow, we're we're doing a lot of this." I didn't really think about it all that much, and I think that's actually fairly common. It's there's just not nobody has a lot of context for this. Everyone's kind of in their own little, kind of go for a hole, and every once in a while you kind of poke your head up and look around and see what everyone else is doing. But it's all kind of happening very much organically within different companies.
What was that impetus or trigger point or big bottleneck that you were like, "Oh, this is so painful, I need to get started on this journey"? Was it, you alluded to debugging earlier on, but what made you kind of take the plunge and say, "Hey, I want to look externally, get some partnership, and see if I can get my team on this journey"? Yes. So I
started, I suppose, with GitHub Copilot. I'm going to botch the dates here, but it's we'll call it early 2024, maybe late 23, whenever that kind of first version came out that was doing the fancy autocomplete. And I was encouraging our teams to use it. They were all, "This is pretty cool, work," that kind of vibe. And then around the beginning of this year, when the agent modes started coming out with Copilot, Claude Code came out, that was when I personally found, I was like, this is going to be a big change. This is changing the way I work. I guess I should say, I wake up every morning, I get up at 6, I make coffee, and then I code for an hour usually. And that's my time to kind of tinker and experiment and try out new tools. And so the more and more I went deeper on Claude, the more I went deeper on Copilot and agent mode, I just got more and more convinced that this is the new way to develop. And so I guess it was around the May-June timeframe was when it was okay, we need to really push this to our teams. And so we started offering training We have a program where anyone at the company can request to do whatever AI training they want, and we'll reimburse them up to a certain amount. Nice. And that goes for coding or not coding. That's other stuff too. And we had decent adoption with that. And then eventually what was like, well, there's just like a lot to learn is what we found with people. And they were a little hesitant of like, this it's so big. Where do I start even? And so there was some hesitancy there. And that was what led us to develop a more formalized training program and doing some training engagements and offering those to particular people on the team to really like push them. And honestly, I think the biggest thing was just like letting them see what's possible and then seeing it in the context of the actual work that they're doing day to day. That was really important for making them successful and for really getting to the like aha moment for those teams.
Has anything changed in, what you thought was possible and now what you're seeing could even be possible? Like, has the goalpost shifted in your mind? The end state goal is even bigger now, or?
I think that's like one of the big challenges for us as a team, just kind of culturally, the pre-AI coding, post-AI coding, the expectations in terms of what is good and what is timing. Time is always tough to measure with engineering because you don't want to like push people to do. You want quality, but you want it costs money to do things. So that I think is going to be a big challenge, is setting expectations around how work gets done and like how quickly it gets done. I think that's a big thing that honestly we're not entirely certain what it's going to look like yet, but from some of the like the data that we've pulled and the results that we have, it's on the order of 6x more efficient and productive per engineer. Wow. We took some of our Jira tickets and these were ones that were direct from customers. I was on the road this summer talking with customers. I met with a few hundred users, getting feedback, and they let you have it, which is good. You want them to tell you the truth,
customers
right?
do.
Yeah, as they do. And so we made a big list of like, okay, here's what I'm hearing, and I took it to the team. We showed them, and some were bugs, some were like, maybe it's not a bug, but it's like, well, this is pretty weird how it works. Like, we should make it more accommodative. And then some were new features. So we made this big list. And that was actually the original engagement that we did with Symphony. Was we were like, hey, we've got this list. We actually estimated the tickets pre-AI coding, so with standards of yesteryear, and they were all estimated at like we were in points, but like roughly 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, in that order of magnitude in terms of time. And we did them as part of the Symphony engagement. We'd go through and we'd work each ticket every day, and the results were like, I'm getting Slack messages. We're like, hey, we just finished the group, the new group layout, and it took 20 minutes. Some stuff like that. We're like, holy cow, this is incredible. And we pushed them out last week. I actually haven't told anyone this yet. And we got our first customer feedback, and our account manager sent me the screenshot from the email, and he was like, oh my gosh, you fixed this is so great. So it works, it's like that, because ultimately that's what matters, is the customer value and making your customers happy. It's like, I do love the technical side, but the code is a means to an end. And so
exactly.
Yeah, it's cool to see it actually work and actually make our customers asymmetrically happy, I'll say.
Talking with our team as well, I believe there are tickets that would take, I guess, 4 weeks that are now getting completed in a few hours. I believe manual coding has rather dropped by 70 to 80%. Can you unpack a little bit of those two as well, and kind of the workflows that made it possible?
Yes. So I tend to track I don't like go overboard on metrics, because I find it's like you got to track stuff that matters. You got to track stuff that, like, if it goes up or down, like, what do you do about it, right? Like I don't track metrics just for vanity. So what we've seen though is that, like, our pull requests are way up, way up. So pull request, I think of that as some unit of work that is meaningful enough that we've like agreed that everyone has collectively agreed this goes into the product. So that could be, it's going to run the range of, could be a different way to deploy, could be a bug fix, could be a new feature, could be a new, many features, whatever the case. But I think it's a very good proxy for value in that sense. And our pull requests as a company, since we've launched Claude Code, since we've launched Cursor, are up 60% monthly.
Wow.
With particular teams, they're up 300%. With teams where we have more saturation, like AI coding saturation. So generally productivity's up. I did some numbers in May, June, looking at lines of code produced actually it was June and April. So that was like pre-AI, post-AI. And in April, we produced I think it was 200,000 across 36 developers. And then in June, we produced 1.2 million across 15 developers. Now, lines of code, maybe not the end all be all metric, but I think it just is to show of how much code is getting generated versus how much code is actually still being typed. So everything points to this is a massive productivity boost. I think the interesting thing too on just the volume of code is that what I'm seeing because I'll go in and look at pull requests, way more unit test coverage, way more of the mundane stuff that nobody really likes to do. Way more documentation is getting committed too. That's also what goes into that lines of code number that we're seeing. So, I'm a believer in this too. So I suppose that there's probably a decent amount of criticism you could come up with in terms of all those numbers, but from what we're seeing, it is producing value for customers, and that's, at the end of the day, again, that's what we care about.
And if I had to unpack that a little bit more in terms of what's driving productivity, is it the mundane tasks that you no longer have to do that's reducing a cognitive workload for an engineer, and then they can spend time just on the more strategic things and orchestrating levels? Is it just physically typing out manual code and figuring things out there, and the errors they make that now is 80% of that is now not done by an engineer, it's just written through Claude. Is that time that's getting freed up being applied to being more productive? What are the very atomic level drivers?
I'd say so. I mean, the truth, I think it's all of the above, but the teams where we have the most adoption have said, this is so much fun. I don't have to worry about we don't even do estimation anymore, because it's it's stupid. We don't need to. Why do we need to debate if something is 3 points or 5 points? We get to spend our time together thinking strategically about what do we want the code base to look like, what are the architecture decisions that we're going to make, and then the low level stuff, it's Claude does that or Cursor does that, and we don't have to worry about it nearly as much, which is what I love that. I want to be able to have our most senior engineers thinking about strategically where do we end up, and not how do I get through the day. I think that's just such a value-wise is so good for the business, and honestly just way more interesting work for everyone at the end of the day.
has that helped even maybe engineers unlock more product and business ideas?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, a couple of ways we're doing that. So I have our engineers do a lot of customer calls. I am very pro putting engineers on the phone with customers. I do not find that, I think there's a lot of stereotypes for engineering, and some of them are true, of like the personalities you typically get. I would say on the whole, we tend to hire people that are fairly product focused, so they understand what customers, so we skew that way a little bit. But anyways, I'll put them on the phone with customers. And so we had one guy, Wandres, had 2 customer calls like back to back a few weeks ago, and he was getting feedback on this new capability we were adding, and both customers had the same problem. They're like, hey, we want to schedule in a particular way, and then got on the phone with the next customer, hey, want to schedule in a particular way. Well, Andres listens, goes, oh, I got it. Like, I know what we got to do. Goes in, writes his prompt in Claude. 5 minutes later, it's done, and that's it. Like that, to me, that is like such a, coding aside, that is just such a phenomenal customer service experience. And if you can replicate that at any sort of scale, you're going to have ridiculously happy, fanatical customers. So that's something that we are going to be pushing on more. I basically want to have that just like at all times. We should be doing that. That's great. And then yes, the other way is just using AI to be able to do more product research, be able to pull more questions and problems up front. That has been really effective just in things like, particularly we're adding, in addition to using AI, we are adding AI capabilities to our own product lines. And so that's been an area where, you can use AI to research, how should we do this? What are what's like state of the art for vector search, or what's state of the art for agent to agent communication, that type of thing. And it's not to say you can't do that research on your own, but it's a heck of a lot easier if you've got Gemini or ChatGPT or, take your pick, that's bringing the internet to you, as opposed to you having to go and find your way around. So that's been a way that has just really consolidated and streamlined the amount of time it takes to do that sort of activity. I also find that when the person that's doing the work, I think this definitely applies for software engineering, but this is for anything. But when the person that's actually the one that's hands on keyboard or is on task, if they fully understand the problem that they're solving and they're not getting it piecemeal from, like you said, from support, from sales, from whoever, but they really get what they need to do, that is when you get great product, because you have like all of the kind of like micro decisions that need to get made are intuitive to that person, because they understand what's the end game here. They don't have to like go back or make guesses or talk to the sales team or get so-and-so's opinion. And so you get a better work product, and in my experience, you get it faster too, because you've got that person that's got it all up in their head, and they're just trying to like manifest it as software, so to speak.
I'm sure that's great for morale, because they have more agency, and also helps engineers build more customer sense too, which is like all win-win, right?
Yeah. I think that's part of the team culture we have, is, for better or worse, like I am not going to dictate every single detail on the product side, and so I expect our engineering team to be able to do that, or be able to ask questions when things do come up. So it is in my opinion, a highly autonomous engineering position with a lot of responsibility.
What have been some key unlocks in kind of debugging speed, time spent there, or the amount of resources you need to solve those issues? Yeah.
So I can tell you personal experience with this, because I was working on I mentioned like I code in the mornings, and so some of that is like personal, just like for fun learning, and then some of that I'll like go in and try to apply it to our own product lines, just because that's the real deal, right? And so I was using Claude. I wanted to use Claude to build a feature and see how far could I get with me not writing any of the code, and I wanted to use a real code base, so I used one of our oldest products. We wanted to build basically like a new login flow. And so, you're in the repo and you see these files and it's like last commit, you've got the git blame and it's like someone, I don't know their name, 12 years ago. And you're like, okay, this one, like, you get out your brush, your Indiana Jones brush, and you like dust it off. And you're like, wow, okay, I'm gonna touch this file. Okay, better know what I'm doing. But what I did was like, okay, I know there is like a login mechanism. Like you have to log into the product. I know that there's a session handler somewhere because you got to have sessions. I have no idea where it is. And there's 100,000 lines or 100,000 files in this repo. And so you put Claude code on it. And that is where it really can help. Like it can sift through everything. And I tell it, hey, I'm looking for this stuff, like help me find the code. Like I literally can't find the code. And then it gives you a list of 10 files. I'm like, oh, there it is. It's, auth handler 2 or whatever they named it. And that would have taken a really long time. I mean, that we're talking at least a day, maybe more, especially if you mess up. And so it took something that would have been honestly just not fun and really a pain in the butt, and you do it in 5 minutes. It's great.
Amazing. A great story there.
Yeah.
Okay, talking about we had started to touch upon the cultural aspect and the teams accepting it. I mean, we're in this business as well, and there's always this question, more probabilistic code, how the trade-offs between speed versus maintaining code quality and reliability. Were those issues that came up when you started going on this journey with your team?
Yeah, that's something that we definitely heard from the team, and I think just like writ large within the software community, that's a big debate right now with AI coding. I don't call it vibe coding. I don't know why. I think I just don't really, I think it's just coding in my mind. I don't really see the distinction.
Real CTOs and folks don't. Yeah. It's all the non-tech folks like us who do it. Yeah.
No, it's all good. We've got, we actually have subscriptions to various like Bolt and V0 that some of our sales and some of our head of HR uses it too. So they get involved sometimes. It's great for mock-ups. It's great for just like getting your idea down. But that's certainly something that I think is a pervasive debate in the industry. My personal opinion, I don't think it's any worse than the code that humans are producing. I think if anything, it's actually better. If I look at the code quality, I look at the comments, I look at the documentation that gets produced, look at the unit tests, I think it's far superior to at least for what I can do. And so I personally don't care. And if it was written by a human, it was written by a bot or whatever, written by AI, doesn't particularly matter to me. I care about the outcomes. I talk with the team about this a lot. Like we are at the end of the day, like we're paying for outcomes, and like the outcome that we need is these particular, whatever it's features, whether it's bug fixes, whatever it is. And it doesn't particularly matter to me how we get there. If you want to use a hammer and chisel, great. If you want to use power tools, that's cool too. And the truth is like there's a need for both. You have someone come and redoing your bathroom or building a house for you. If they show up and they've only got a hammer and nails, be like, well, this is going to take a while. Like this isn't not the best. You expect them to have power tools, and so I think it's the same thing. Like you're going to have to have a mix of these tools. And I see like AI doing the bulk of the work, and then humans kind of being there to make sure that everything goes according to plan, and being able to go in there with that scalpel or with the hammer and chisel to tweak it and make sure that it all works at the end of the day.
How is your team's reaction to working with an external partner, an external vendor, where folks come in and say, we've been doing this is a new way? Was there a lot of resistance in adopting a more formal way of infusing AI in the SDLC process and like up-leveling themselves, or generally
I think a little bit.
Yeah.
I think definitely a little bit at first. I don't know if they would tell me. I mean, maybe they probably would, but we framed it I really like how we set up our engagement, where it wasn't like, hey, Symphony is going to tell you what to do. It was much more like, hey, they've got some stuff they've been working on. Let's have them in bed with the team and we can all work together on how to solve real problems. Like I mentioned earlier, we were going through and working real tickets that mattered to customers, came direct from customers. Can't get any more realistic than that. And so I think the first couple days there was some like, I don't know if this is gonna work. And then it was on a Friday, I remember. I started getting these messages of like, holy cow, we just finished this feature in 20 minutes. And then it was like, we just finished this one in 15. And then Sean, he's my VP of engineering, he's like, I just did one. This was awesome. And so that was once the kind of like the snowball started to roll and got bigger and bigger. And by the end of the engagement, Sean and I put together the ROI. We're like, this is great. This is like, we got to do another one of these. And I had our support engineering and our data engineering teams were next in line. They really wanted to do it. So we're working on that right now, actually, of getting them set up with different projects.
What did you have to do as a leader to guide your team into this transition? It's a pretty tectonic shift, right? Was there a moment where you stood on top of a chair and said, "Team, I see different seas. We're boarding another ship."
Yeah, we definitely been. I've been, I don't know, on the soapbox a little bit. I do I have call it the tech roundup. It's just like I don't know. I guess it's a blog. But it's a giant Google Doc.
An internal blog that you do?
The internal blog, yeah. And I post every 2 or 3 weeks and talk about either just stuff that's going on with the tech team. So it could be what we're hearing from customers. Sometimes we'll do like voice of the customer. Sometimes we'll do feedback from new features that were released. But for a couple months there, I was really beating the AI drum in terms of like, hey, here's what I did today, or like, hey, check this tool out. Mm-hmm. And I think ultimately, particularly in software, bottoms up adoption is more effective than top down. But at least it like certainly made my perspective clear to the rest of the team, and I think it did encourage at least 1 or 2 people to try something new.
All of this is in service of some sort of business value, some sort of revenue metric that you're driving, drive more customer engagement that drives revenue, and doing this more efficiently without scaling your team in a huge way. How did you think about the ROI, and how are you thinking about it as you're going through this AI and the SDLC process? What are conversations you're having with the office of the CFO, and what's the ROI math here?
Yes, that's something that is a common topic of conversation within the Francisco CTO channel and network. So I showed our CFO, maybe it was probably like June or maybe even earlier. Yeah, it was actually earlier because before we really adopted this stuff. I was like, Devin, I want to show you like how this stuff works. And so we did a screen share and I showed him how I can like prompt, and I was like, what feature do you want to add? And then I'd type it in and like it would build it. And so Devin was like, okay, I see what you're talking about now. I think that helped a lot, honestly, just in getting us so that when I say, hey, I want to spend X amount of money to test out and see what happens when we train our team, he's like, okay, I get what you're going to do. I get what you're trying to go after. And so that was helpful. And then the other thing is we put together scenarios for the investments and the money that we wanted to spend of like, well, if we spend $10,000 on this, what are we going to get like in scenario, downside scenario, mid scenario, high scenario? What kind of ROI do we need to see in order for it to be a net budget neutral engagement? And what we found is that it does not have to be very effective for you to have a like net positive ROI on the project. You need, it depends on what your project you're doing, how you're structuring it, and obviously what you're working on. But for us, like we needed to be 25% more efficient. Efficient, that's a bit of a big term, but just so we don't have to go through my spreadsheet, basically. We needed to have like 25% productivity boost for this to make sense. And so I show Devin, show VPV and me, show them the numbers, and then we're like, well, here's what we're seeing when we test it in like a micro environment. So small scale test, you've got yourself or one dev using Claude or Copilot, whatever it is. And we're seeing somewhere between, it's at least 6x, it might be 15. It's kind of hard to say, but like low case, the low end, it's 6x. And so, Devin's a math guy. Like it doesn't take a lot of arithmetic to figure out. They're like, okay, this is like almost assuredly going to be a phenomenal investment for the business. And at the end, like in the scheme of like a private equity backed company, spending $20,000 to test a hypothesis, and if it works, you've got a massive payoff. It's money worth spending, assuming your math works out like it does for us. And so in our case, it did, and that's why we're continuing to invest heavily in this with other teams.
Makes a ton of sense. And I assume there's a belief that this is bankable at scale. So even if the 6x is a 3x with a huge haircut, if you scale this across all your products, your entire team, there's belief that there is still ROI there.
Yeah. I think so. Just because it's a lot of it is happening at the individual level. So I suppose the way that this wouldn't be bankable at scale is if we like ran out of work to do, but I don't see that happening. I think at least what we're discussing right now is like, holy cow, we've got quite a bit. We're gonna have quite a bit of capacity that product-wise we did not have this capacity 6 months ago or 12 months ago. So yeah, I think for us it'll manifest as more product and higher quality products, just because you can afford to really go deep on the edge cases and on the maybe it's only 5% of your customer base, but now that you've reduced the cost of development by by 83%, you've got things become affordable and things become net value positive that weren't a year ago. So that's pretty cool. That's something I'm also very excited about.
So spending all that time, all that additional capacity to make your product better with the same team size, is that where you're thinking? Got it.
That's where we are right now. Yeah, is we'll have roughly the same team size. Roles will shift a little bit. So like one area that we realized that we're going to need to change is how we're doing QA and deployments. Because historically that hadn't been a bottleneck. Like historically the bottleneck is on dev time, and now that's shrunk way down. And so this, whatever, if you've got your your chart or whatever, it's like your your dev used to be here, QA was like this, and deploy was here, and now the dev is so small that these other two boxes are much bigger. And so yeah, we're going to be putting a lot of effort into how do we streamline and how do we speed up QA and deploys. We got to do more deploys, and we've got to be able to do QA faster, because right now our QA cannot keep up with the pace of development.
So interesting. The bottleneck has completely shifted.
Completely shifted. So we're creating a new function called AI Ops, which this is also like, there is no playbook that I've seen yet. So we're not entirely sure what it's going to be, but like it's some combination of QA plus software engineering, maybe with some like, I'll call like infrastructure DevOps kind of in the mix. But we need a team that is like such a big part of our plan. Like we need a team that is just thinking about how do we like make our AI operations better for the rest of our development team, so that we can support everything that we want to do, so that we can support all these different parallel projects that we have going, because like it's quite a big shift for our tech team.
Are there any use cases you're now exploring beyond your core team, beyond software development, with the data team, with other teams that you're kind of rolling out that's driven by you, or testing with business teams?
Let's see. Yeah, we've been pushing a lot more to have more direct feedback from, I'll call it like non-technology org employees. So whether that's like writing specs, we have one of our customer development reps, that's like our account manager, customer success, that type of function. He's written maybe like 5 or 6 product specs right now, and so the idea is like we're gonna be able to take those and feed those into our teams and work off of those. So that's one area. And then support, and for us, support's pretty technical. Like we have our product deals with a lot of data, so we have a lot of engineering that goes into support, and then our data engineering, which is doing our customer deploys, doing all of our data pipeline stuff, mapping with customers. Those two functions are where we're going to be doing a lot of training and doing a lot of upskilling as well.
I guess finally, given you're pushing the boundaries here, you're really at the cutting edge of how you use this with your teams, and definitely in a PE-backed environment, in software. Any kind of messages or key learnings, your key takeaways to product and technology leaders listening to this podcast and them wanting to get started on this journey? What's the best way to get started? I would encourage
any CTO that's interested to try it themselves. And even if you've been removed from the code, from software itself for a while, give it a try. There's so many great options. Lovable, Bolt, Vercel has V0, which is great. They're all really fun, and it doesn't take long. You don't have to know modern JavaScript or modern anything. You just have to have an idea, and I think any CTO worth their salt has ideas. So I would give it a try and just see what happens. And at least for me, that's what I did. I tried Bolt like maybe a couple years ago or something, and that was the light bulb. I was like, oh my gosh, this is like going to change how everybody works. And so I would encourage other people to do the same. I think you'll get to that moment really quick. Awesome. Greg, really enjoyed this conversation. Like I said, I wish we could go on another half an hour, but got so many great nuggets of wisdom from you. And yeah, really appreciate your time, our partnership, and hopefully fishing tips in the future. Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks again, Greg. Thanks for having me.